Hey guys, tonight we're going back to the 14th century, where the air is thick, the rats are bold, and the streets have forgotten what laughter sounds like. You're not a king or a noble tonight. You're someone ordinary but deeply unlucky, because you're alive in the time of the Black Death. Your feet crunch over straw soaked in things you'd rather not identify, and every breath feels like it's borrowed. There's a sound that's behind you, soft and wet, a cough, low and desperate. Not yours. Not yet. You wake in a village that used the smell of bread and firewood. Now, it smells of rot and sweat and something metallic you can't name. Outside, your neighbor's goat is screaming. You don't know if it's hungry, or if someone finally decided goat stew is worth the risk. There are fewer voices each morning. Your uncle's cough started 3 nights ago. Today, it's rasping like old parchment, and his eyes look glassy, sunken. You try not to meet them. He clutches your hand anyway. It's warm, too warm. A woman down the road has nailed her door shut from the inside. People say her whole family's already dead, but no one wants to check. No one wants to breathe that air. You walk to the square, hoping for something: bread, prayer, maybe a lie to comfort you. Instead, you find silence and flies. A priest mutters over a pot of incense, swinging it toward the ground like smoke can somehow erase death. You almost laugh, but instead you sneeze. A boy points. His mother pulls him away. They don't look back. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, post your location and local time below. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge back toward your hut, trying not to imagine the fleas. Historians still argue whether the real culprits were fleas on rats or airborne droplets, though, in your case, the difference is academic. You hear rats in the thatch above your bed. You name one of them Maurice. If he survives longer than your cousin, you'll be more impressed than surprised. Food is scarce. Not because there's none to be had, but because everyone who sold has vanished. Some say they fled. Some say they died. Some say they were taken in the night by spirits that hunger for the living. You just know your stomach growls like it's auditioning for a choir of demons. You check on your uncle again. He's sleeping. No, not sleeping. He's quiet. You lean in, too close. Then his eyes snap open and he gasps your name. You jump, bang your head on the low beam, and spend the next hour nursing both the bump and the anxiety. He whispers, "Don't go to the church." You ask why. He wheezes, "Because it's already full." Later, a woman tries to sell you a pouch of herbs. Claims it's rosemary, sage, and angel breath, guaranteed to keep the sickness out of your lungs. It mostly smells like foot and disappointment, but you buy it anyway. Anything is better than nothing. That night, you dream you're in a clean place. There's no coughing, no flies, no Maurice. Just a table and bread and a cat purring in the corner. When you wake up, your hut is colder than it should be. Your uncle isn't breathing. You sit beside him until the light through the cracks changes from orange to white to gray. Then you stand, lift him as best you can, and stagger toward the edge of the village. There's a cart there, usually. The driver wears a scarf over his mouth and doesn't speak. Today, the cart is full. You wait, the body growing heavier by the second. Eventually, he nods, and you add your uncle to the pile. He looks small. He always looked big to you. As you turn to leave, a chicken wanders by. You try to catch it, not for food, just for the distraction. The chicken outsmarts you. It's the only moment of levity you get all week. A fringe belief has started floating around. Something about the stars being misaligned or Saturn's bad mood. Someone's aunt swears she saw Death riding a pale horse on the hill 2 nights ago. You didn't see it, but the air does feel heavier now. You find yourself talking to Maurice as you eat the last crust of rye. You know, you say, this would all be easier if you paid rent. He squeaks. You're not sure if it's agreement or disdain. Tomorrow, you'll have to search for food. And maybe hope the rumors of fleeing nobles are true, because rich houses often leave full pantries. You won't feel guilty about breaking in. Not anymore. You lie down, press a cloth over your nose, and pray. You're not sure to whom. You just hope someone, somewhere, still listens. The wind shifts. A door slams somewhere distant. Maurice climbs into your sleeve. For once, you let him. You wake up hungry. Not just stomach rumbling hungry, but eyes squinting, head pounding, slightly hallucinating hungry. The kind where even a damp straw on your floor starts to look seasoned. You roll onto your side and sniff the air. Still no bread baking. No stew bubbling from across the way. Just a lingering scent of mildew, wood smoke, and the faint, sour tang of something long dead. Your neighbor's door creaks in the wind. It's still ajar. It's been ajar for 2 days. You haven't seen her since Tuesday. Your stomach protests again. Loudly, you mutter an apology to it and step outside, bundled in a cloak that hasn't been washed since the last full moon. The village square is barely a square anymore. The butcher stall is empty, except for flies that have set up a thriving democratic society. The baker's window is shuttered, the sign swinging sadly above it. You find half a loaf of bread in the mud behind the blacksmith's place. You're not proud. It's moldy, damp, and possibly older than some of your memories. But you eat it anyway. You pretend the green fuzz is parsley. Rats scatter near your feet, as bold as ever. One stops and looks at you as if to say, "Really? That's your breakfast." You nod solemnly. It squeaks once and disappears into the well. Nearby, a group of villagers argue in hushed tones. You catch the words barrel, cellar, and locked from inside. You don't ask. The last time you asked, someone tried to hand you a dead chicken for good luck. You don't need that kind of charm in your life. Historians still argue whether famine played a more devastating role than the plague itself. You can't decide. All you know is you've started licking your fingers after pulling weeds, just in case one of them is edible. A child approaches you with a grimy cloth bundle. He opens it to reveal, brace yourself, dried turnip skins. You give him a pebble in exchange. It's not fair, but it feels like commerce. You chew the turnip skin and try to remember a time when meals didn't crunch in unexpected places. That evening, a man with a sack over his shoulder stumbles into the square. He's coughing. Everyone scatters. You hide behind the cooper's barrel. The man falls to his knees and wheezes, "Food! Left it in the forest." Then he slumps forward, unmoving. You wait. 5 minutes. 10. The crows arrive before you do. You try not to look too closely at what they're pecking. You set off toward the forest. Hunger overrules your common sense. The trees are still green, a small mercy. You walk past mossy stones and quiet streams, every sound amplified by your paranoia. Every bird call sounds sarcastic. You find the bag. It's hanging from a tree branch, as promised. Inside, miracle of miracles, are 3 withered apples, a chunk of goat cheese, and something that used to be a sausage. You nearly cry. You definitely eat the cheese, questionable or not. While chewing, you spot something strange nearby. A wooden figure nailed to a tree, arms outstretched, face crudely carved. A charm, or a warning. You ignore it. Probably fine. Definitely not cursed. On your way back, you see the cooper's daughter gathering mushrooms. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs and whispers, "If I die, at least I'll die full." You nod. Solid logic. You share one of your apples with her. She tells you her name is Eleanor. You realize you haven't heard anyone introduce themselves in weeks. It's nice. You store her name like it's treasure. That night, as you sit near your dwindling fire with a stomach that's only mildly angry now, you think about how quiet the nights have gotten. Even the owls seem to be taking precautions. You hum an old lullaby your mother used to sing. Something about bread and honey and warm milk. Maurice pokes his head out from under your blanket, squeaks once, and curls back up. There's a soft knock at your door. You freeze. No one knocks anymore. You open it to find a boy holding out a pouch. He says nothing, just holds it there. You take it, and he turns and walks away. Inside is a single, perfect egg. No note, no explanation. You boil it over a sputtering flame. The shell cracks halfway through, but you don't care. It's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. Later, as you drift into sleep, foolish for once, you wonder who the boy was. You decide not to wonder too hard. Answers tend to come with complications these days. Your dreams are vivid. Roasted meats, dancing villagers, and a table so full of food it buckles in the center. Then one by one, the people around it begin to vanish. You wake up alone. Again, morning comes gray and dull, but your legs feel steadier. Your thoughts a little clearer. Hunger hasn't beaten you yet. You stretch, swat at Maurice before he tries to steal a crumb from your sleeve, and whisper to yourself, "Let's find something to eat that doesn't fight back this time." The cart rolls into the village just after sunrise. You hear it before you see it. Wooden wheels creaking under uneven weight. The wet slap of something soft hitting the planks. You don't want to look, but you do. Everyone always does. The driver is the same gaunt man with the scarf tied over his face. No one knows his name. He doesn't speak, just gestures. One bony finger, one nod of the head. Today, the cart is half full already. By noon, it won't be. Your uncle's body is long gone now, probably buried in one of the mass pits beyond the chapel. But someone else's family stands across from you in the square, and they're doing what you did a few days ago, pretending the stillness isn't permanent, pretending the breath will come back. It won't. You step forward before you realize you've moved. You help lift the old man. He's light, disturbingly light, onto the cart. His eyes are open. Someone should close them. You reach out, gently press the lids down. The daughter murmurs a thank you. You nod. You don't say anything because your voice hasn't quite returned since yesterday. You're not sure why, just that it takes more effort now, even to breathe. The driver clicks his tongue, and the mule starts again. The cart creaks away, trailing death in damp straw. You notice something new today. A boy is following the cart, not helping, just walking behind it. Maybe he's hoping to see where they go. Maybe he's thinking ahead, planning. It's not even strange anymore. Nothing surprises you. There's a story the older villagers whisper sometimes, about a woman who climbed on a cart before she died, just to save someone the trouble. Some say she was a saint. Others say she was mad. Historians still argue whether such stories were born from truth or terror. You spot Eleanor again. She's sweeping her doorstep like it matters. You raise a hand. She nods. No smiles exchanged. Smiles are in short supply. Inside your home, you find a rat has chewed a hole in your blanket. You don't blame Maurice. If you had teeth that sharp, you might gnaw something too. You sit down, trace the hole with your finger, and think about what it used to be like when someone else sat beside you, when voices filled the space, when doors weren't always shut. Later that day, you help dig. The priest, well, the one who's left, has asked for volunteers. You're not sure if you volunteered or were just standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Either way, the shovel ends up in your hand. The soil is heavy, damp, the pit is wide and deep, and the smell is exactly what you expect. Worse, even, you breathe through your sleeve. It doesn't help. The priest mutters something in Latin. You don't understand it, but the rhythm is comforting. You dig a little faster. A man beside you says this will be his 5th grave this week. You nod. He shrugs. Only 2 of them are family. As if that's supposed to be comforting. There's a body wrapped in linen that clearly wasn't made for burial. It's embroidered. You catch a glimpse of a blue bird stitched near the hem. Someone wealthy. Or someone who stole from the wealthy. You say nothing. The priest drops holy water from a cracked clay bowl. The droplets vanish into the dirt like they're running away. You ask quietly, "Do you think it works?" The priest says nothing for a moment. Then, "If it doesn't, at least I've tried." That night, you dream of the cart. Only this time, it's not bodies it carries. It's people you used to know, laughing, singing, tossing crumbs to birds. You wave. They wave back. Then the cart vanishes into mist. You wake up more tired than when you slept. At midday, you see a new notice pinned to the chapel door. It's written in Latin, but someone has scribbled a rough translation underneath. Avoid gatherings. Avoid the sick. Pray often. You squint at the last part. You've prayed plenty. You're still here, which either means it's working or that no one's listening and you're just lucky. A child runs through the square with a wooden sword, yelling something about dragons. For 1 second, just one, everything feels normal again. Then his mother shouts, grabs his arm, and pulls him inside. You think about the cart, the weight of bodies, the priest's tired hands. You think about your uncle's last words. Don't go to the church. It's already full. And you wonder, did he mean full of people or full of something else? You glance at the chapel again. You don't like how the door stays slightly open, like it's watching. Maurice sits on your boot, twitching his whiskers. You sigh. You're the only one who sticks around. He squeaks in what you decide is agreement. You don't eat dinner that night. Not because there's no food, but because your appetite has joined the list of things that vanish quietly. Instead, you sit by the dying coals of your fire, listening to the creak of the wind through rotting shutters, and whisper a name you haven't said in weeks. Yours, just to remember how it sounds. The wind carries strange sounds tonight. You lie awake, wrapped in what's left of your blanket, listening. It's not the usual creaking wood or scurrying rats. It's lower, rhythmic, like a chant. You slip outside and follow the sound, drawn toward the edge of the village. The moon is half covered, casting enough light to navigate by, but not enough to feel safe. Maurice rides on your shoulder like a slightly judgmental sentinel. Behind the old mill, you find them, a cluster of hooded figures, moving in slow, synchronized steps. Some hold torches, others branches stripped bare. One is beating a drum. Softly, its beat as steady as your breath when you were younger and sleep came easier. Flagellants. They've come through before, but you've never watched them this close. Men and women, barefoot and silent except for their muttered prayers, walking in circles, striking their backs with cords. A voice beside you says, they think if they bleed enough, God will listen. It's Eleanor. She's crouched next to a tree, knees drawn to her chest. You nod, not taking your eyes off the scene. She adds, one of them tried to sell me a scrap of cloth soaked in his blood. Said it was holy. You raise an eyebrow. I traded it for a dried plum. She adds, still haven't eaten it. Feels cursed. The procession slows. One man collapses. No one helps him. Eventually, he crawls into the grass and lies there, face to the sky, mumbling about forgiveness. Or maybe mushrooms. Hard to tell from here. Historians still argue whether movements like this slowed or spread the plague. You're just surprised how organized they are. Someone has clearly been practicing choreography. You and Eleanor slip away before they notice you. Back to your respective shelters. On the way, you find a beetle flipped on its back. You nudge it upright with a stick. Small kindnesses are the only kind left. Morning comes with a smell you haven't known in days. Roasting meat. Real, actual, unmistakable meat. You follow your nose like a cartoon character, floating on a scent trail until you reach the square. There's a man turning a spit over a makeshift fire. A dog sits beside him, watching hungrily. What is it? You ask. He doesn't look up. Don't ask. You decide that's fair. He offers a portion in exchange for labor. Move some barrels. Fetch water from the well. You agree instantly. Your muscles ache. Your knees crack like old furniture, but you move like your next meal depends on it. Because it does. The water is murky, but the man doesn't seem to care. He mutters, boil it and it's fine. You think about the last time anyone in the village had a fire big enough to boil anything. Probably weeks ago. Maybe longer. You haul the water back. He gives you a chunk of meat. It's salty, a little tough, but glorious. You close your eyes while chewing. You try not to think about the dog watching you with absolute betrayal in its eyes. By afternoon, the man is gone. Just disappeared. No trace. Maybe the meat was cursed. Maybe he was. You don't get sick, though. Small victories. Later, you find Eleanor sitting by the well. She's dropping pebbles in and listening to the plunks. I used to throw wishes in here, she says. What kind? You ask. The usual. Love. Bread. A pony. You both laugh quietly. You throw one in. What did you wish for? Clean socks. You say. She snorts. Practical. You spot movement near the chapel. Two figures dragging something heavy. You squint, but they're gone before you can make out details. Probably just another cart. Maybe a body. Maybe books. You haven't seen anyone reading in ages. You mention it to Eleanor. She shrugs. If I had a book right now, I'd burn it for warmth. That night, you write your name in the dirt floor of your hut with a stick, just to see it. It looks alien. You whisper a few letters out loud. The sound startles you. You hadn't realized how long it had been since you spoke at length. Words feel strange in your mouth, like they no longer belong to you. You fall asleep dreaming of torches and drums and chanting, of a man striking his back with a cord, then stopping, looking up and pointing directly at you. When you wake, the sky is the color of wet ashes. Maurice is gone. His hole in the wall has collapsed inward, a tiny tragedy. You hope he's okay. You check the square. It's empty. You check Eleanor's hut. Also empty, but her broom is gone and her door is latched. That's good. That means she left on purpose. Probably. You sit on the chapel steps, watching smoke drift from a distant chimney. Someone's still alive out there. That's all the hope you need to stand up again. You don't go inside the chapel. Not yet. It still feels full. The rain starts just after midday, a slow, soaking drizzle that seems to whisper rather than fall. It's not the dramatic kind that hammers rooftops or splashes joy into puddles. This rain seeps into the walls, into your sleeves, into your bones. You wrap yourself tighter in your cloak, now stiff with dried mud and memories, and step outside. Maurice has returned miraculously, his whiskers twitching like he's offended that you ever doubted him. The village feels hollow today. You count 7 doors hanging open, a few more than yesterday. Either people are leaving or you head to the edge of town. There's a path that leads between 2 mossy stones, half forgotten, barely used. You take it. You're not even sure why. Maybe it's the sound of the rain pulling your thoughts outward. Maybe it's just because there's nowhere else left to walk. The trees lean in overhead, their branches heavy with dripping leaves. Every droplet sounds like a whisper from someone long gone. You walk until you find the old hermit's hut. Everyone used to talk about him. Said he lived alone for decades, drinking dew and talking to badgers. Said he was blessed, or cursed, or both. You never knew him. But the hut's still here. It's barely more than a mound of moss and wood, but it smells faintly of herbs, rosemary, sage, a bit of something bitter. Inside you find dozens of clay jars, some sealed, some cracked open. One contains dried roots. Another, a thick green paste. Another, bones. Small ones. Mouse, maybe? Hopefully mouse. There's a book, too. Not a Bible, not a psalter. A notebook, full of symbols you don't understand, and sketches of plants and insects. You flip through it slowly. Try to make sense of the swirling script. Historians still argue whether rural wise men like this were true healers or just lucky herbalists. You wonder if it matters. The man isn't here anymore. Only his jars remain. You pocket a bundle of dried something that smells vaguely lemony. You're not sure what it does, but it doesn't reek, and that's enough for today. You return to the village in the thickening rain, the smell of the woods clinging to your clothes. Eleanor waves at you from her doorway. She's wearing what might once have been a wedding veil. Now it's just a fancy hat against the drizzle. You go grave robbing, she calls. You shake your head. Shame. Could have used some silverware. You give her one of the lemony sprigs. She sniffs it, raises an eyebrow. Smells like a bath I took once. You can't tell if she's joking. You both laugh anyway. In the evening, you visit what remains of the tavern. It's been shuttered for weeks, but the back door's loose. Inside, a few old chairs, one shattered lute, and a barrel of something that might still be drinkable. You take a sip. It is vinegary, but alcoholic, which is the only qualification that matters right now. You bring some to Eleanor. She raises the cup in mock ceremony. To survival, she says. To questionable decisions, you reply. You sit under her eaves and listen to the rain. She hums an old tune, something familiar but hazy, like a song half remembered from childhood. You mention the hermit's book. Could have been a healer, she says. Could have been a lunatic, you counter. She shrugs. Not much of a difference now. You ask her if she ever learned to read. She nods. My father taught me. Said it'd be my dowry. You whistle. What did you get in return? She smirks. Freedom. You give her the book. She flips through it slowly, reverently. Her finger traces one of the strange symbols. This one looks like a snail eating the sun. You decide to believe that's what it means. By nightfall, the rain finally stops. The world feels washed but not clean, just wetter. You lie in bed, try to fall asleep. Maurice is curled on your chest, purring faintly like a broken bellows. You stare at the rafters and wonder how many of your neighbors are still breathing. There's a knock. Again, quiet, measured. You open the door. It's Eleanor. She looks shaken. She holds out the book, points to a page. This symbol, she whispers, was on the chapel floor. You frown. What? Etched in the wood. Near the altar. I thought it was just damage before, but it's the same. You both stare at each other for a long moment. Then she shoves the book into your hands and disappears back into the mist. You sit down, open the book, trace the snail sun symbol again. You don't know what it means, but you know it's not random. You mark the page with a piece of thread, and then, finally, sleep. You wake before the sun, your breath fogging in the cold air. Something has shifted in the silence outside, subtle but sharp, like a hairline crack spreading through glass. Maurice is already up, prowling the corner of your hut with clear suspicion. Even the rats are acting different. You open the book again. The snail eating the sun symbol sits there, as confusing and ugly as ever. You still don't know what it means, but now it's connected to something inside the chapel. And that's enough to keep you from going back to sleep. You decide to go. Not yet, but soon. The idea sits with you all morning, uncomfortable but persistent. You find Eleanor out by the well again, tossing pebbles like prayers. She doesn't look up. I thought maybe I imagined it, she says softly. You sit beside her. Then I remembered. My brother used to draw that same shape in the dirt. Said it was lucky. You raise your brows. He's still around? She shakes her head. Gone before the plague. Got kicked by a mule. You nod solemnly. Classic. She doesn't laugh. Not today. Together, you plan a visit. Not a break-in. More like a casual trespass. The chapel's been mostly abandoned since Father Ralph vanished 3 weeks ago. A few people still leave bread at the door or candles or desperate notes scrawled on torn linen. You go after dusk. Easier to slip in unnoticed. The door creaks but doesn't protest. Inside, it smells like dust and ash. The altar is barely visible in the low light, but you make your way toward it, past pews that look more like skeletons and furniture. There it is, just like Eleanor said, etched into the floor, just off-center beneath the altar, faint but deliberate, the same spiral with pointed tips. You both kneel. Eleanor runs her fingers over it. It's not new, she whispers. The wood's worn smooth. Why here? You murmur. She doesn't answer. The back of the chapel groans. A shadow moves. You freeze. Then a voice. You shouldn't be here. It's old, hoarse, and familiar. Out steps the man from the burial cart. Same scarf. Same eyes. Only now he's holding a small torch and a bundle of something wrapped in dark cloth. I knew someone would find it, he says. Eventually, you stand. Your legs shake. What is it? A prayer, he says. A curse. A mistake. Historians still argue whether rural clergy dabble in protective magic during plague, or if local villagers just imagine patterns in the chaos. But this doesn't feel like invention. The man kneels, lays the bundle on the floor. Inside, bones. Tiny, delicate. Animal, maybe not. We tried everything, he mutters. Smoke. Fire. Herbs. Even this. He gestures to the symbol. Didn't work. You and Eleanor glance at each other. Neither of you speaks. The man looks more tired than anyone you've seen. And that's saying something. I'll be gone by morning, he says. Best you forget what you saw. He walks past you. His footsteps sound hollow, like the floor might collapse behind him. You wait until he's gone. Eleanor whispers, "We can't leave it. What are we supposed to do? Scrub the floor?" She shakes her head. "We need to draw it again." You blink. "Why?" "Because it worked." "Didn't he just say it didn't?" She shrugs. "Then why is he still alive?" You stare at the spiral. You don't want to believe. But believing doesn't require logic anymore. Only desperation. The next day, you and Eleanor gather chalk, soot, and whatever remnants of the hermit's herbs you can spare. You draw the symbol in the dirt behind your hut. Eleanor marks it on the wall inside hers. You're not even sure you get it right. But when it's done, the air feels stiller. Maurice refuses to step near it. He paces in annoyed circles instead. Later, you help carry 2 more bodies to the pit. Neither of them had the symbol. That night, you dream of spirals. But this time, they're not drawn, they're alive. Spinning, breathing, pulling you inward. You wake with your hands clenched and a strange smell in your nose. Sage and something burnt. You find Eleanor already outside. She hasn't slept. Someone painted it on the chapel door. She says, "Big, fresh." You go to see. She's right. The snail sun is back. Twice as large, smeared in what looks suspiciously like blood. You think of the man from the cart. He said he'd be gone. He didn't say where. Eleanor whispers, "What if it's not a prayer or a curse?" You glance at her. What if it's a warning? You wake with a feeling that something's missing. Not like a misplaced cup or a forgotten chore, but something bigger, like a weight lifted that you weren't ready to let go of. Maurice is gone again. The blanket you used to share with him feels colder. The wind whistles differently through the gap in the wall. You whisper his name once or twice, as if that's ever worked, and try to shake off the unease. Eleanor appears not long after. Her eyes are red. She doesn't speak at first, just holds out her hands. They're stained at the fingertips. Black dust. Soot maybe. Someone burned the symbol off her hut during the night. Scratched it clean and threw ash at the door. You look at her and say, "That wasn't random." She nods. "I think someone's scared of it." Or worse, they're trying to keep it from working. You offer to redraw it, but she shakes her head. "Not now. Not in daylight." You understand. There's a tension in the village today. The kind you can't see, but feel in the way doors stay closed, the way people move faster, quieter. Even the birds are gone. No crows, no pigeons, just the occasional flap of wings too high to identify. You pass by old Marriott's place. The shutters are nailed closed now. She used to throw stale bread at you when you were younger. You sort of miss her. By the well, there's a new posting nailed to the beam. The ink is fresh. The writing is hurried, angry. Blasphemers bring sickness. Root them out. You glance around. No one's looking at it, but no one's taking it down either. You and Eleanor both know what it means. Think they mean us. You joke weakly. "Maybe just me." She says, "You're not weird enough to be dangerous." You grin, but the chill doesn't leave your chest. You decide to visit the hermit's hut again. Maybe there's something you missed. A clue, a map, a spell, anything. The path feels longer this time. Every branch seems lower, every root thicker. The forest isn't welcoming anymore. It's watching. Inside, the jars are undisturbed. You start opening them one by one, sniffing, checking texture. You find something that smells like copper, something that fizzes when wet, something that might be wax or flesh. In the darkest corner, behind a cracked beam, you find a roll parchment, tied with hair, human hair. You suppress a shudder and open it. It's another symbol, not the spiral, but close, a variation, more angular, more aggressive. You show it to Eleanor. "This one's different," she says, tracing it, sharper, like it's meant to hurt something. "Like what?" She doesn't answer. You both stay close that night. Not quite together. Your huts are still your huts, but close enough to hear each other breathe. Maurice returns. Thank everything. But he's limping. There's a gash near his paw. Something deep. You clean it with boiled water and hope it's not infected. He looks up at you like he blames you for everything. Fair enough. Eleanor doesn't sleep. You can see her silhouette sitting at her doorway, carving something into a piece of wood. When morning comes, someone's left another message at the well, purged and marked. And this time, it's scrawled over the spiral symbol. Someone's drawn a crude X across it, like a warning or a target. You notice Eleanor's hut has a new charm over the door, a piece of string with bones and feathers knotted into it. I made it from the old hermit's things, she says simply. You nod, very subtle. Didn't want subtle. That day, you find out Marta, the miller's daughter, is gone. No one saw her leave. No one knows where she went. Some say she ran. Others say the plague finally got her. But you hear whispers. She had the mark. She went to the chapel. She talked to the girl who draws symbols. You find a scrap of Marta's dress near the edge of the woods. A blue piece, muddy and torn. You bring it back and leave it on a stone by the path. Maybe it's a grave now. That evening, the man with the burial cart reappears. No scarf. No bones. Just him, sitting at the chapel steps, staring at nothing. You approach him cautiously. She wasn't supposed to touch it, he murmurs. Who? The girl. Marta? She copied it wrong. Now it's waking things. Your spine tightens. What kind of things? He just shakes his head. Not from here. Not anymore. You leave him there, rocking gently like he's listening to music only he can hear. That night, you hear drums, not the flagellants. These are different. Lower, slower, like something breathing, far underground. Maurice hisses at the door. Eleanor knocks once, fast. They've drawn it again, she says. On my roof. You both stare at each other. You don't know who they are, but you're starting to believe they've been watching longer than you thought. You wake to the smell of smoke. Not the cozy kind that curls through chimneys, but sharp and acrid, burning something precious. Your first thought is the forest. Again, but it's coming from a village. You throw on your cloak and dash outside. The sky is bruised orange, the sun half swallowed by smoke and ash. Near Eleanor's hut, a small crowd has gathered. Someone set fire to the charmed string over her door. Eleanor stands at the edge, arms folded, eyes cold but steady. Maurice brushes against your ankles, for singed on his side. You kneel to check, thankfully just a scorch. Someone shouts, witchcraft. That mark brings death. You recognize the voice. Old Tom, the baker, who used to smile before everything went dark. Now his face is twisted with fear and something sharper, rage. The villagers push forward, angry and scared, brandishing sticks and tools. A few faces you know, faces that yesterday laughed with you by the well. Now, they look like strangers. Eleanor steps forward. It's protection. From what? Tom snarls. From plague? From God's wrath? You bring the curse. You want to say something. Something clever, calming, convincing. But your throat tightens. The truth is you're not sure. You glance at the spiral symbol, still faintly visible on the chapel door. Someone had tried to wash it off, but the marks remain stubborn, like a stain you can't scrub away. Historians still argue whether symbols like these were meant to ward off evil or invite it in. Today, you're not sure which side you're on. The crowd surges. Eleanor grabs your arm. We have to go. You slip through alleys and hedges, the shouts fading behind you. You don't stop until the forest swallows you whole. You both sit on damp moss, catching your breath. The smell of smoke lingers, mingling with the scent of pine and earth. Do you think it's over? You ask. Eleanor shakes her head. No, it's just beginning. You nod, swallowing hard. As night falls, you make a small fire, careful to keep it low. Maurice curls up close, his limp paw a reminder that danger isn't just outside. Eleanor pulls a hermit's book from her pack. I found something, she whispers. She flips to a page filled with tangled lines and faded script. It talks about the spiral protection, but warns against the broken circle. You frown. Broken circle? Like the symbol, but incomplete. distorted, dangerous. You both study the page, tracing the lines with your fingers. The idea settles over you like a chill. Maybe the symbol on the chapel and the one burned off Eleanor's hut aren't the same after all. Maybe someone's been trying to break the protection instead of build it. You lean back, eyes on the stars peeking through the branches. They don't look so friendly tonight. Maurice purrs softly, and you let your head rest against the moss. Tomorrow, you'll face the village again. But tonight, you let the forest cradle you in its uncertain darkness. The cold seeps into your bones as dawn breaks unevenly through the tangled canopy. You rub the sleep from your eyes, but the unease hasn't lifted. You know the village won't wait for you to catch up. You and Eleanor make your way back, moving cautiously through empty lanes and shuttered windows. The villagers are still gathered around the charred remains of her hut's doorway, whispers buzzing like angry flies. Old Tom is nowhere to be seen. The village baker's absence is a small relief, but the mood hasn't lightened. Instead, it's heavier, darker. You approach the chapel. The spiral symbol has been defaced again, this time with a jagged slash through the center. Someone has scrawled a message beneath it in uneven letters. The plague comes with a curse. Your stomach twists. Eleanor touches her arm. We have to talk to the priest. You glance around confused, but Father Ralph is gone. She nods. His replacement arrived last night. The new priest is a thin man with a sharp gaze and a voice that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He warns the villagers about heresy and sin and the dangers of dark magic. His sermons are fire and brimstone, a stark contrast to Father Ralph's gentle teachings. You catch Eleanor watching him closely. He's not here to save anyone, she murmurs. He's here to control. The priest singles out those who carry the spiral mark, the cursed, and demands they be handed over. You and Eleanor are forced to hide. You hear the cries of neighbors dragged from their homes, the slam of doors, the crack of whips on wood. Maurice hides under your bed, his fur bristling. You're left with a hermit's book, the symbols, and a growing sense of dread. Historians still argue whether the panic during the Black Death was more about fear of the disease or fear of those labeled as outsiders. Today, you feel it firsthand. Night falls again, and the village feels smaller, darker. The once vibrant community now feels like a cage closing in. You hear a faint tapping at the window. Eleanor opens it cautiously. It's a small note, pinned by a thorn. Meet me at the old well. Midnight. You exchange a glance. This could be a trap, or the only chance left. You nod. We go. Midnight drapes the village in shadows that swallow sound and shape alike. You creep through narrow lanes, every step measured, heart a drumbeat in your chest. Maurice slinks beside you, a silent shadow himself, his limp paw barely making a sound on the cold stones. The old well stands in the village square like a forgotten eye, its mouth dark and empty. You glance around, no lights, no watchers. Only the whisper of wind threading through leafless branches. Eleanor steps forward and lowers her voice. We need to be quick, if the priest's men find us. You shiver, though not from cold. I know. The note wasn't signed, but it feels familiar. You wonder who would risk this much for a secret meeting. Hope or desperation. Maybe both. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the darkness. A woman cloaked in tattered gray, face hidden beneath a hood. She moves with purpose, not fear. You came, she says softly. Eleanor's eyes narrow. Who are you? The woman lowers her hood, revealing sharp eyes that gleam like dark stones. My name is Agnes. I used to be one of the healer's apprentices before the plague claimed him. You feel a flicker of hope. What do you want? Agnes pulls from her satchel a small bundle of herbs and a folded piece of parchment. I know what the symbol means. It's part an old protective ritual, one meant to keep the plague spirit at bay. Eleanor looks at you, surprised. Then why burn it? Why the threats? Agnes sighs. Because others fear what they don't understand. And because the ritual was never meant for this place, or this time. It's incomplete, broken. It could do more harm than good. You swallow. Historians still argue whether such rituals could actually affect the plague, or were just desperate superstition. Agnes nods. Exactly. But the fear they stir is very real. That fear is what's tearing the village apart. She hands you the parchment. The symbols are intricate, far more complex than the spirals you've seen. We need to complete the circle, she says. Finish the ritual properly. Eleanor frowns. And how do we do that without becoming targets ourselves? Agnes shrugs. We don't have a choice. The night feels heavier, like the air itself is waiting for your answer. You look at Eleanor, then at Maurice, who's quietly watching. All right, you say softly. We'll try. Agnes smiles faintly, relief flickering in her eyes. Good, because time is running out. As you turn to leave, the distant bell of the chapel tolls 12 times, echoing to the silent village like a grim countdown. The first light of dawn slips through the trees as you and Eleanor follow Agnes deeper into the forest. The village feels miles away. No more angry whispers, no more suspicious eyes. Only the rustling of leaves and the soft padding of Morris's cautious steps. Agnes leads you to a small clearing where the ground is oddly bare, almost as if something ancient rests beneath the soil. Around perimeter, faint carvings are etched into the stones, spirals, circles, and unfamiliar shapes that seem to pulse under your gaze. This is where the ritual began, Agnes explains, kneeling to trace one of the carvings. Where the original circle was drawn centuries ago, to keep the plague's spirit locked away. You feel a chill, wondering about the legends tied to this place. Stories passed down by elders that plague wasn't just sickness, but a restless force that could cross between worlds. Eleanor leans closer, whispering. Historians still argue whether such beliefs are just folklore or reflect deeper truths about how people cope with the Black Death. Agnes nods. In any case, the broken circle we've been dealing with has cracked that seal. The plague shadow has slipped through, and the village's misfortune is a symptom. You frown. So what's next? Agnes pulls herbs, chalk, and bits of bone from her bag, laying them carefully in the center of the clearing. We finish the circle, she says. We draw the symbol perfectly, add the forgotten elements, and call the spirit back into the seal. You and Eleanor exchange glances. You're no mystics. You're just people trying to survive. But something about Agnes's calm makes you trust her. As Agnes begins a ritual, chanting softly in a language that feels both foreign and ancient, you watch the sun climb higher, casting light and shadow in equal measure. Maurice, ever watchful, circles the edge of the clearing, ears perked. The air grows thick with scent, sage, smoke, earth. Your skin prickles as the symbols glow faintly beneath the chalk. For a moment, you swear you hear a low hum, like a heartbeat from the ground itself. Eleanor grips your hand. If this works, maybe we can stop the fear. Stop the village from tearing itself apart. Agnes nods. But remember, rituals like this demand belief. Without it, they are just lines on the ground. You feel the weight of her words settle deep inside. You want to believe. You have to believe. As the ritual reaches its peak, the clearing is bathed in a gentle light, and the air feels lighter, like a breath held too long has finally been released. The plague shadow hasn't vanished, but for the first time in weeks, you sense a fragile hope. The days that follow the ritual feel different, as if the very air of the village has shifted. You trudge through familiar streets, but the tension that gripped faces like a vice seems to loosen just a bit. The charred marks on Eleanor's door are gone, replaced with fresh paint and small bundles of herbs hung like charms. Maurice trots ahead, tail wagging, though his limp still slows him down. You catch him chasing a stray butterfly, a small victory in a world that's been anything but. You visit the chapel, expecting resistance, but find the new priest speaking quietly with some villagers. There's less fire in his voice, more uncertainty. It's as if the ritual's ripple has unsettled even him. Yet, the village isn't healed. Far from it. People still disappear at night, and rumors swirl like smoke. The plague is not gone, they say. It hides. Eleanor and you talk long into the evenings, piecing together what Agnes shared. The ritual was never meant to be a cure, but a barrier, a line between this world and whatever lurks beyond the sickness. Historians still argue whether the Black Death was purely biological or if cultural fears and beliefs shaped its deadly course. Maybe it's both science and superstition intertwined like the spirals you now know so well. One afternoon, you find a letter tucked beneath your door. No signature, just a drawing of the spiral symbol, complete and glowing softly. Beneath it, a simple message. You are not alone. You glance at Eleanor, who shrugs, eyes wide. Could be a friend or a warning. You smile despite yourself. I'll take either. The village feels a little less like a cage today. You still watch your back, still question who to trust. But there's a spark, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope finds a way to flicker. Maurice barks once, chasing a crow off the roof. You laugh quietly, the sound strange and welcome. You wonder what tomorrow will bring, but for now, you let yourself breathe. The nights grow colder, and a faint frost creeps into the edges of the village, crisping leaves and frosting windows. Yet inside, a restless energy hums beneath the surface, like the calm before a storm you can't quite predict. You find yourself drawn back to the hermit's book, flipping through its brittle pages in the quiet hours. The script is dense, but one passage catches your eye, a description of the Guardian's token, a symbol meant to anchor protection, not just in ritual, but in trust between people. Eleanor joins you, peering over your shoulder. Maybe that's what's missing, she says softly. The circle needs more than symbols. It needs people to believe, to connect. You nod, thinking about the fractures in your village, the suspicion, the fear, the division. Maybe the ritual was just the start. The next day, you help organize a gathering in the square. People come hesitantly, some still clutching their grudges, others desperate for connection. You and Eleanor share what Agnes taught you, and together you sketch the spiral symbol in chalk on the cobblestones. Maurice sniffs at the edges, then lies down, tail wagging faintly. The mood lightens as neighbors share stories. Old tales, recipes, memories from before the plague. You notice something remarkable. Laughter, not the forced kind, but a quiet, genuine spark that feels like a lifeline. Historians still argue whether community rituals during the Black Death were acts of defiance or despair. Tonight, it feels like both. As the sun dips low, casting golden light on hopeful faces, you realize that while the plague's shadow still lingers, it can't consume everything. The village might be scarred, but it's still alive. And so are you. You catch Eleanor's eye and smile, a promise that whatever comes next, you'll face it together. The cold snap turns into an unseasonal thaw, melting frost into muddy streets and puddles where children splash, their laughter ringing out like an unexpected melody. You watch them from the edge of the square, feeling an odd mix of hope and disbelief. Life feels like it's pushing back against the darkness, stubborn as weeds breaking through cracked stone. You wander through the market, noticing subtle changes. The blacksmith's hammer strikes with renewed rhythm, the baker's ovens burn brighter, and even old Tom, the once angry baker, offers a tentative smile as he hands you a loaf of bread. You nod in thanks, wondering if the village's fear is finally loosening its grip. Eleanor walks beside you, fingers brushing against yours in a rare moment of warmth. Do you think the ritual really worked? You ask. She shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe people just needed to believe it did. Sometimes that's enough. You remember Agnes's warning about belief, fueling the ritual's power. It's strange how faith, superstition, and hope can twist together in times like these. Later, you hear whispers about strangers arriving, merchants, travelers, curious about the village's recovery. Their faces are foreign, their accents strange, but they bring news and goods, shaking the village's isolation. Historians still debate whether increased travel helped spread the plague or fostered healing through connection. You suspect it's a bit of both. That night, you sit by the fire, Maurice curled in your lap. The flames flicker shadows on the walls, and you let your thoughts wander. Despite everything, despite loss and fear, you feel a quiet certainty that the village will endure. And so will you. A week later, the village wakes to an eerie stillness. No crows cawing overhead, no footsteps on the cobblestones, just a heavy silence that presses against your skin like damp cloth. You rise early, pulling your cloak tight against a morning chill. Maurice follows, his ears twitching, sensing the unease you try to mask. At the square, villagers gather in hushed clusters, faces pale and worried. A messenger arrives, breathless, With news from the neighboring town, another wave of sickness is spreading faster and fiercer than before. Fear curls in your chest. You remember the stories, how the Black Death came in waves, like tides pulling lives out to sea. Eleanor grips your arm. We thought the worst was behind us. Maybe it never was. You look around, catching eyes filled with the same dread. The spiral symbol reappears on doors, freshly painted and trembling with hope and desperation. Agnes returns, eyes shadowed but determined. We need to prepare, she says, not just with symbols and rituals, but with care, medicine, food, watchfulness. You nod, feeling the weight of responsibility settle in your shoulders. This plague isn't just a sickness. It's a test of the village's spirit. Historians still debate how much practical knowledge versus superstition help communities survive the Black Death. Today, you know survival requires both. As night falls, you help organize watch groups, stockpile supplies, and tend to the weak. Maurice lies at your feet, a quiet reminder that life continues, fragile but stubborn. You close your eyes, breathing in the smoky scent of fire and the faint hope flickering in the village's heart. Tomorrow will be hard, but you'll face it. Together, the new day dawns gray and heavy, clouds hanging low like a shroud over the village. You trudge through mud and frostbitten grass, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on your limbs. The air smells damp, earthy, with a faint tang of smoke lingering from last night's fire. Everywhere, the village pulses with quiet urgency. Families sealing windows, farmers rushing to protect their animals, children too young to understand clutching their mother's skirts. You can feel the collective breath held tight, waiting for the next blow. You visit the sick in the small, makeshift infirmary, one room hastily converted into town hall. Faces are pale, eyes glassy and distant. A few cough harshly, their breaths rattling like dry leaves of storm. Maurice stays close, resting his head on your knee, offering small comfort amidst the fear. Eleanor joins you there, her hand steady as she tends to a child's fevered brow. We're doing what we can, she says softly, but sometimes it feels like fighting the wind. You nod, knowing the truth behind her words. The plague isn't just an enemy you can see or touch. It's a shadow creeping through bones and hearts. Still, there are moments of humanity shining through. A healer sharing herbs with a stranger, a mother singing lullabies to a sick child, neighbors exchanging what little food they have. Historians still argue whether such acts of kindness were the real lifelines during the Black Death, or just fleeting flickers against overwhelming despair. You choose to believe they matter. As night descends, you and Eleanor sit outside the infirmary, the sky blanketed with stars that seem sharper against the dark. Do you think we'll make it through this? You ask quietly. She looks at you, eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. We have to, because giving up isn't an option. You squeeze her hand, the warmth grounding you in a world still spinning too fast. Maurice sighs contentedly, and you lean back, letting the night wrap around you like a soft, protective shroud. Days blend together in a hazy rhythm of care and quiet dread. You move through the village like a ghost, your steps tracing the worn paths between homes and fields, each familiar corner now shadowed by loss. Maurice, ever faithful, limps beside you, his once bright eyes now clouded with age and exhaustion. Sometimes he stops and looks back, as if urging you not to forget what's been lost. You sit with Eleanor beneath the ancient oak tree, its bare branches stretching against the gray sky. She pulls a tattered shawl tighter around her shoulders, eyes distant. Remember when this village was full of music and laughter? She murmurs. You nod, the memory sharp and bittersweet. Before the plague, before the fear and suspicion, the village had a heartbeat, a wild, unbroken rhythm. Now, silence has settled like a thick fog. Yet, despite it all, you still find moments of light. A child's shy smile, a shared loaf of bread, a whispered prayer under trembling breath. You find an old book in chapel. Pages yellowed, words faded. It speaks of resilience, of how communities pull together in the darkest times, weaving hope from threads of despair. Historians still argue whether the Black Death permanently changed the social fabric of Europe, or if people simply adapted and carried on. You realize that maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Maurice lets out a soft whine, nudging your hand. You smile, the small comfort grounding you in the present. As dusk falls, you watch the village lights flicker on, soft glows in the gathering dark, each one a tiny defiance against the night. And in that fragile glow, you find the courage to keep going. The chill of early spring settles over the village, but beneath the frost, something stirs. You notice in the way the sun lingers a little longer each day, in the timid buds on the branches, and in the cautious hope in villagers' eyes. Maurice barks softly at a flock of birds returning from their migration, their songs unfamiliar but comforting. You join a group planting seeds in the communal garden, a small act of rebellion against the shadow of the plague. Soil crumbles between your fingers, dark and rich, promising life in the months to come. Eleanor stands beside you, her smile a rare bloom. "It feels like the village is waking up," she says. You nod, feeling the truth of her words. In the evenings, you gather with neighbors around fires, sharing stories of resilience and survival. Some speak of losses that still ache. Others have plans for the future. Maurice curls at your feet, tired but content. You reflect on the strange mix of superstition and science that has guided the village's fight. The spiral symbols, the herbs, the rituals, they are part of a larger story about how humans face the unknown. Historians still argue whether these cultural practices slowed the plague or simply helped people cope. Perhaps both are true. As you lie awake, listening to the quiet hum of the village, you realize that healing is a slow, fragile process, one that takes root in small acts of kindness and courage. You close your eyes, letting the peaceful darkness carry you, feeling, for the first time in a long while, that maybe, just maybe, the worst is behind you. The village is alive again, but with a cautious heartbeat. People emerge from their homes like tentative blooms, stretching toward the warmth of the sun. The plague shadow still lingers, but it's no longer an overwhelming weight. You stroll down the familiar paths, noticing how even the smallest signs of life seem extraordinary. Birds nesting in eaves, children chasing each other through the square, laughter slipping through cracks in the old stone walls. Maurice trots beside you, tail wagging with renewed energy. His limp has lessened, a small but significant victory. Eleanor joins you, carrying a basket of fresh herbs and bread. "The village is healing," she says, eyes shining. Slowly, but it is. You nod, feeling the truth of her words deepen with each step. The chapel bells ring out, not as a call to fear, but as a celebration of resilience and survival. You remember Agnes's words about belief, about how much of survival is tied to what we hold in our hearts. Historians still debate whether the social upheavals caused by the Black Death paved the way for modern Europe, or if they were just another chapter in an endless cycle. You think about the people who lived through this, those who suffered, those who fought back, those who hoped, and you realize their stories live on in you, in the village, in the very earth beneath your feet. Maurice barks once, a sharp, happy sound, and you smile, feeling the quiet joy of the morning. The future is uncertain, but for now, you are here, together. The sun sets slowly, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold that soften the edges of the village. You sit on a weathered bench outside your home, the cool evening air wrapping around you like a familiar blanket. Maurice rests his head on your lap, eyes heavy with contentment. You breathe deeply, the scent of pine and earth filling your lungs, reminding you of the forest's protective embrace. The spiral symbols are still visible on walls and doors, silent witnesses to what the village endured, but now also symbols of resilience. Eleanor joins you, settling beside you with a quiet smile. No words are needed. The shared silence speaks volumes. You think back to the long journey, the fear, the loss, the moments of doubt, and unexpected kindness, the ritual in the clearing, the whispered stories, the slow weaving together of a fractured community. Historians still debate the many facets of the Black Death's impact, but you know one thing for certain. Life, with all its fragility and strength, found a way to carry on. The village is scarred, yes, but also reborn, like the ancient oak outside the chapel, its branches bare in winter but rooted deep and reaching toward the future. You stroke Maurice's fur gently, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a small comfort in a vast and complicated world. As night falls, You close your eyes. The stars begin to twinkle overhead like distant promises. You let the quiet wash over you, a soothing balm after the storm. And in this peaceful moment, you whisper a promise to the village, to yourself, and to those who came before. We will remember, and we will endure. The air cools and softens, and the gentle hum of night wraps around you like a lullaby. Let your worries drift away. Carried off in a breeze to the ancient trees, and across the village sleeping beneath the stars. You are part of a story much larger than yourself. A story of survival, hope, and quiet courage. Rest easy now. The night is calm, and the world, though forever changed, holds space for new beginnings. Sweet dreams.